American businesses. Thanks, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.
All right, here we go. I've got Caitlin Huey-Burns, Jeff Toobin, Gloria Borger all standing by, and I would love to know, if anyone was counting, how many times Sarah Sanders said the president hasn't done anything wrong. Gloria, I want to start with you. And listen, we don't know what the result of this Mueller investigation will be, but it's almost like, you know, when someone says something over and over and over again, it's like you're trying to convince yourself or someone that what you're saying is true.
Well, I think she said it, first of all, more than a handful of times. I would have to guess. And it was her way of avoiding the question. The president saying he could pardon himself. And she's saying, well, that, you know, we wouldn't even need to go there because there's no need, because the president's not guilty of anything. On the question of the special counsel being unconstitutional, she said, well, we know that isn't needed also because the president hasn't done anything wrong. Is he above the law? Well, no one is above the law, but the president hasn't done anything wrong. So that's the way the whole press conference went.
So, Jeff Toobin.
Yes, ma'am.
If the president hasn't done anything wrong, I just want to go into the specifics on what we know based upon this letter. And this is all, I want to stay on the letter for a second. And this is all in
You're talking about the letter that was in the New York Times, the 20-page letter.
The 20-page letter that was sent from the Trump lawyers to the special counsel saying, yes, that the president, unlike what Sarah Sanders has said in the past, Jay Sekulow has said in the past, that the president did dictate that first misleading statement regarding that Trump Tower meeting with Don Jr., who ultimately we learned wanted dirt from the Russians on Hillary Clinton. Don Jr. told the Senate Judiciary Committee in private testimony in September that he didn't speak to his father about the statement, that the president, quote, may have commented through Hope Hicks. If the president didn't do anything wrong, surely he speaks to his son.
I don't know. I mean, the facts are murky. The only thing that's quite clear is that the letter and the statements by Sarah Sanders and Jay Sekulow are completely contradictory.
Yes.
I mean, she said, and she used the exact word. She said the president didn't dictate the letter, the response to the Trump Tower meeting. The 20-page letter says he did dictate it. So somebody's wrong. I don't know, who's right and who's wrong. Now, Hope Hicks has testified repeatedly before, I believe, both the Senate Judiciary Committee and the Mueller investigation. She was intimately involved in this. I would suspect her view would carry a lot of weight about how that statement came into being. But as for, I don't think we have any way of knowing which one is telling the truth.
Now, when Sarah Sanders was asked directly about how she said that, Caitlin, that Trump did not dictate, Jim Acosta totally called it, our chief White House correspondent. He called it because he said the only way out of it is for her to say, I have to refer you to that outside counsel. But my question is, if she was armed enough with information that original time to say he did not dictate, and it came out of her mouth, shouldn't she be in the position to respond on behalf of the White House to explain herself?
Exactly, and especially since you've had 2 days. This is another example of the White House not having its story straight and being caught for it. Sarah Sanders is evading accountability here consistently by referring things to outside counsel. Now, in some cases, that's right? In some cases, this is outside her purview. In this particular case, this is a question, and it was asked repeatedly by persistent reporters a number of different ways, how her statement from the podium could be referred to outside counsel, because this is going to something that she directly said. And so you can see, this letter is all about the president's legal team trying to figure out ways for the president not to sit down with special counsel. You can see why nobody thinks it's a good idea for the president to sit down.
Done anything wrong,
because
why not sit down with Bob Mueller?
Well, that's...
to me, the most amazing thing about the latest version of this controversy is Rudy Giuliani said over the weekend, well, he can't sit down because we keep remembering new things.
Right.
You know what? If you tell the truth, you don't have to worry about new things coming out. Well, but this is...
Well, Gloria, hang on. Go ahead, Gloria, and then I want to go to Jim Sciutto.
He can't sit down because the stories keep changing.
Yeah.
And maybe the president's recollections keep changing. But whatever it is, there isn't a straight story about a lot of things, whether it's whether it's the Don Jr. Issue, the Trump Tower meeting.
Hopefully we can get Gloria back up. Sorry about technicalities sometimes in live TV. I think we have Jim Sciutto, although, guys, I'm talking to the control room. I'd love to get Jim Acosta up as well. But Jim Sciutto, take us through how much of this story has evolved and now, reporter suspicions that have been confirmed by the president and his words.
Well, Brooke, I would say evolved is a friendly term because the story has outright changed. And it's changed so many times that it's difficult to keep up. So we're going to help you keep up by running through the series of, frankly, contradictory statements about this Trump Tower meeting and the explanation drafted for it after the fact. Let's take you back to July last year. This is the president's lawyer, Jay Sekulow, asked about the drafting of this misleading statement about the purpose of that Trump Tower meeting. He said, in the simplest terms, the president didn't sign off on anything. Fairly comprehensive in that answer. If that's not clear enough, later that same day on CNN's air, he said very similar. Have a listen.
I wasn't involved in the statement drafting at all, nor was the president.
Jay Sekulow, the president's lawyer, not involved at all, nor was the president involved at all. Let's go forward 1 month following that. So in August of last year, Sarah Sanders, the White House press secretary, has a different take on this. Didn't necessarily the president outright wrote the letter, but he was, contradicting Jay Sekulow from the month before, involved. Have a listen.
He certainly didn't dictate, but, he, like I said, he weighed in, offered suggestion like any father would do.
So remember, a month before, Jay Sekulow, the president's lawyer, said not involved at all. Those were the exact words. A month after that, the White House press secretary says, in fact, it was. He weighed in like any father would do. So let's go to what we saw in the New York Times over the weekend. This is the memo from the president's lawyers saying now, in fact, the president dictated a short but accurate statement. We'll get to accurate in a moment, but now it's dictated. So a year later, went from no involvement to the president weighed in to the president dictated the statement word for word. That is the implication there. Now, is there an explanation for that? I know you were referencing this earlier with Jeff and Gloria, Brooke, but let's play what the president's now personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, said to explain all of these changing stories.
This is the reason you don't let the president testify. Our recollection keeps changing.
Our recollection keeps changing. I just want to go back to this point, short but accurate statement, because the fact is the statement was not accurate. It was never accurate whether or not the president was involved, and we now know he was, because we know from emails that meeting in Trump Tower in June 2016 was taken on the expectation, taken by Don Jr., on the expectation that the Russians in that meeting were going to bring dirt on Hillary Clinton. You remember the email, Brooke? He said, I love it. I love the idea when it was presented to him. That was the primary function of the meeting. So the idea, as this statement claimed, that this was all about Russian adoptions was misleading from the beginning, whether or not the president was involved. Now we know that the president dictated a misleading explanation for that statement. It really is remarkable, and you have to go back through it to keep track, and it's a fairly damning account when you do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think to everyone's points, there is inconsistency, lies, whatever the word is that you want to use. That has certainly happened with this latest iteration of the story. Jim Sciutto, thank you so much. Gloria Borger, what say you?
Well, look, I mean, Jim plays it out there. And then, this isn't that recollections keep changing. This is that stories keep changing, not recollections. And the question that, of course, I believe Mueller would want to ask the president is, what was your intent? Why were you so involved in the changing of this story? I mean, don't forget, when they were on this airplane, there was already a much more valid statement that had been drafted by attorneys before. And then the president gets on the plane returning from the summit. Clearly, he sees the statement that had been drafted by attorneys, and he decides to chuck it and instead write what he wants, which was false and misleading. So you can see why Mueller would want to ask him why,